tonight and get the win against the Arlington Renegades? Well, it's time for Week 6 pick'ems and previews. Now, of course, I went through and actually wrote up a full preview for tonight's game, and then we'll kind of do the picks and kind of go through the rest of the games. I've not wrote full previews for those, but stay tuned because the next coming weeks I will be writing full previews for each game during this segment and going over them at that point. So let's go ahead and dive into the first game, and that is the 3-2 Arlington Renegades facing the 3-2 St. Louis Battlehawks. Let's go over this full preview I have wrote up for you. Both teams come into this game 3-2 and will be a battle for the playoffs with only 4 games remaining after this game. One factor that will go into effect for this game is that the Renegades just played the Battlehawks less than 2 weeks ago on April 19th in Arlington, where the Renegades walked away with the 30-15 victory. If Arlington can secure the victory again, this would give the Renegades the tying factor when it comes to the seeding with playoff time, and would give the Renegades second place or possibly tie for first, depending on what the Defenders do this upcoming Sunday. The big thing for the Renegades side of things is just how inconsistent, and I mean inconsistent, they have been all season long. Where really the only game they really played as a cohesive team was against the Battlehawks. Currently, despite the lack of offense, Luis Perez is still sitting at number 2 in the league for passing yards, right behind Jordan Ta'amu. If the Renegades can refocus on what they have done best this year with rushing and using Day Hunter, Balaj to get the run game going, this could be a huge factor to victory. When it comes to the air game, I'd like to see, personally, Luis connect more with Sal Canella, who currently has 22 receptions for 194 yards and 0 touchdowns this season. Luis, we need to get Sal Canella some touchdowns. Come on, we got to do this. The problem, though, Sal has had this year is holding on to the back. He has lost 2 fumbles this season. If Luis Perez can get back on track with his star tight end and connect for some points, this could be a one-sided affair again for the Renegades early on tonight. The Renegades do have a huge advantage at receiver game with Isaiah Winstead, Deontay Burnett, Tyler Vaughns, and Javante Payton, all receivers who, surprisingly enough, have nearly over 1,000 yards combined, yet only have 3 total touchdowns this year. That says a lot right there with overall how they're working with touchdowns, the ground game, and things like that. Where we do look at the ground game, they have 7 total touchdowns rushing so far. Obviously, for the Renegades, the key piece piece to victory on the offense would essentially be getting something consistent going that will tire the Battlehawks defense, who will be missing a key piece to their defense tonight. That could cause some issues for him. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But one interesting thing I noticed on the Renegades depth chart is Day Hunter is listed to be a kick returner for the Renegades for the first time this season. So that could lead to some interesting plays with how Day runs the ball. Could we see a kick return come from Day this weekend? I hope so. I really hope for his sake that he can do a kick return. It'd be absolutely amazing. Where, again, on the flip side, the Renegades defense is coming into this game with 5 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries, and 3 of them coming off forced fumbles. They will need to get pressure on Max Duggan often and keep his legs at bay because they currently have 12 sacks for 99 yards for 99 yards with those sacks. If controlling the ground game for Max and get some more picks or forced fumbles, this could be another way this massive defense can help with the points or forced punts in pivotal moments of the game. Currently, the Renegades are averaging about 23.2 points per game and only giving up 16 points per game. The problem we have seen is where the Renegades are shooting themselves in the foot is penalties. They currently have 36 penalties for a loss of 291 yards and are averaging 7.2 penalties per game, losing 58.2 yards per game in those. They will need to keep these down in order to not give Max Duggan and their offense more chances with the ball or give up yardage on defense that is going to put Max Duggan and the St. Louis Battlehawks offense in prime position to score. Things here, surprisingly enough, for the Renegades so far this season, when they have scored touchdowns, they've only gone for 2-point conversions, which they are 10 and for 12, which is a good successful completion rate. And it seems that's where they feel the most comfortable for going for 2-point conversions. I will note in this game that despite the loss last week against the Defenders, cornerback Gene Harris was named Ortho Defense Player of the Week based on his 2 crucial interceptions that swung momentum back into the team's favor before they were edged out by the Defenders. He ended up on the day with 6 total tackles for 1 loss and a key pass breakup, and is currently leading the league in 3 major defensive categories per the UFL.com. Passes defended 11, interceptions 3, and forced fumbles 2. He will need to be a key impact player again in this game for the Renegades to quiet the St. Louis crowd. The only thing to keep an eye on is it was reported that he was dealing with a left ankle injury and was limited Monday, but full practice the rest of the week and will be a full go for tonight's game. The only real injury the Renegades currently have are center Jake Johanning, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who has a head injury is inactive for the game. When we look at the other side of the ball and the St. Louis Battlehawks, they are coming off an amazing game against the Michigan Panthers with Max Duggan's first outing as starting quarterback for the Battlehawks. After they lost Manny Wilkins to a season-ending injury in that matchup with the Arlington Renegades 2 weeks ago, at that point, Max did not look great at all and had quite a bit of rust to him, but that quickly changed a week later against the Panthers. It did help a lot for Duggan that Hakeem Butler returned from injury last week and ended up getting a 67-yard touchdown in the second half, which led to the Battlehawks getting the victory in the Dome. Duggan also rushed for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. As long as the offense can keep driving, they are looking to put a show on tonight. Jacob Sailors is another player to keep an eye on for the Battlehawks, as he has had a standout season so far and is currently sitting at second in the league for rushing yards with 251 and also number 1 against all running backs with 202 receiving yards, which has helped a lot, having Manny Wilkins throwing the passes to him in those first couple games and now Max Duggan as the quarterback. But based on the injury report, we do know that last week a key player, as I talked about earlier, the Battlehawks defense was injured. That totally shifted momentum for them, and that is defensive edge Austin Falui, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who has a left knee injury and was out all week in practices. He is inactive for the game, which is a huge part of the Battlehawks defense. We will see Phil Hoskins start in his place, and at least he's had a full week to adjust to the defense and starting. And without Austin, I think this will be a key thing to look at, is how different the St. Louis Battlehawks work against the Arlington Renegades, and if the Renegades take advantage of that, because Austin was very good at making the quarterback hurry up in most cases, and then, of course, getting tackles and stopping yards or whatnot when it came to the run game. So that's something to keep an eye on tonight. But in this game here, at the end of the day, I am going with the Arlington Renegades to beat the St. Louis Battlehawks. I really do think, despite the fact we don't have much on Phil Hoskins or whatnot, I think this issue with Austin being out this week and being injured could really affect the defense, which could lead to some consistency with the Renegades, the rush game, the air attempts or whatnot for Luis Perez and his receivers. Again, if Luis and Sell can get on the same page, and Sell can at least hold on to the ball once he catches it and runs, and then they kind of get consistent with that run game that kind of sloped off quite a bit last week. I think this is a key momentum shift for the Renegades that could help them with having Austin out on the Battlehawks defense. All right, so let's move on to the next matchup. That, of course, is the 1-4 Memphis Showboats facing the 2-3 Houston Roughnecks, who are on a roll at this point. Quite a different team once they had Jalen McClendon come in and start due to an injury to Nolan Henderson. I do think in this scenario here, there is so much going on with the Memphis Showboats. Jim Turner obviously got the team kind of back on track a little bit, but in my opinion, despite the fact Dresser coming in, he being quite a good quarterback in this realm, I think he could put up some numbers tomorrow, but when it comes down at the end of the day, I think the momentum continues to shift in the Houston Roughnecks scenario, and they are going to get the win here. So that's again just my thought basis there with it. I think they will get the win tomorrow against the Showboats, and that will ultimately potentially end the Showboats' time. Looking at a playoff shot or whatnot, I think they'll be the first team eliminated from playoff contention on Saturday or tomorrow. All right, moving on to Sunday's games. We have the 4-1 DC Defenders traveling to Michigan to play the 3-2 Michigan Panthers. Now, in this game here, we did hear the announcement from Mike Nolan that Bryce Perkins is the starting quarterback going forward, QB1 for the Michigan Panthers going forward in their season. This is amazing. Thank you, Mike Nolan, for finally choosing a QB1, because quite honestly, as I've talked about, anytime Danny Edeling has come into the game, it's been okay, but he's also throwing picks. He's kind of swifted the momentum in games, and we saw that last week. This cannot happen again. And quite frankly, if you are focused and you've given the keys to Bryce Perkins, this is going to be a tough matchup when it comes to the DC Defenders. They're 4-1. They're not doing bad at all. There is some inconsistency, just like we've seen with the Arlington Renegades offense. But last week when they played the Arlington Renegades, we saw quite an improvement out of Jordan Tamu, Abram Smith, and the entire offense, and how their defense was working as well. I think that's going to be a key point into this Sunday matchup with the Panthers. But if I had to pick and be a winning man, I am going with the DC Defenders. They have a momentum going, like I was talking about, and now that Bryce Perkins is essentially the starting quarterback for Michigan, they've got that underway. I think that DC has the edge over the Panthers in this game, with the consistency of how much Jordan Ta'amu continues to be number one in the league for stats, passing yards, and everything like that. I think that's going to be a key matchup here for the DC defenders. They will have to essentially make sure that run game is going great with Abram Smith. I think if they can get that momentum going, DC defenders are going to be unstoppable. But again, the inconsistency we've seen with the DC defenders offense with Jordan Ta'amu and some of his receivers, penalties they've got have kind of cost them. In the end, though, I do think the DC defenders will walk away with the victory in this game and move to 5-1. Then we go to that, of course, is the 1-4 San Antonio Brahmas traveling to Birmingham to face the 3-2 Stallions. Now, of course, the Stallions in the past, including this game, the last 2 weeks have faced losing record teams. They've gone 1-1 with those teams. They won 2 weeks ago, and then last week they ended up losing. And quite frankly, I've got to say, with this being the first home game on a Sunday, not on a Friday night, with that loss with the Memphis Showboats, I've got to say that in this scenario, 1-4 Brahmas have a lot of trouble. They did not look good at all. They almost got completely blown out by the Houston Roughnecks last weekend, or shut out per se. They did get blown out. Pardee is a good new interim coach. But I will say, going into Birmingham this week, Birmingham has never lost 2 consecutive games back to back. And quite frankly, I do not see the Brahmas breaking that streak here. And quite frankly, Case Cookus is kind of showing a complete difference. Obviously, we saw a lot of conversation back and forth between him and Skip Holtz in that game last week against the Showboats. There were some mistakes made, but I think as time goes on and we continue to see this overall perspective of Case Cookus and whatnot, I think with him getting a start, continuing his momentum with the Birmingham offense and everything like that is going to lead them to a huge victory on Sunday. I don't think this game is going to be even remotely close. I think we're going to see a similar situation happen to the Brahmas, like we did with the with their game with the Houston Roughnecks. We don't have a depth chart just yet for this game, so we're not 100% sure. Starters, all that. We don't know if Kellen Mond is starting or if they'll go to the backup. Whatever the case may be here, I still think in the end, the Birmingham Stallions do not lose back-to-back games in weeks, and they will move to 4-2 in this one. So let me know in the comments what you think about these. And then, overall, if you're looking at my standings, which I don't have on the screen here, I am currently sitting at 12-8 for the season. Last week was not a good week for picks. I am hoping that this week will be quite a bit different, and I can try to go 4-0 for a week for once. So we'll see. Let me know in the comments your picks and your thoughts on these weekend's games, and we'll see you back here on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone.